Good morning, friends. Bring that up. Do one more shot. There we are. Good morning, and welcome to another episode of PB Reads the Bible. I'm PB. I'm Pastor Brian, pastor here at Christ United Methodist Church, and it is good to be together today, as it's always good to be together with you folks. And this is an interesting way for us to do that. So welcome. Thank you for joining me here for another episode of PB Reads the Bible. And this is episode 19 on our journey through 1 Samuel. So a couple house cleaning things, or maybe I'll wait a moment on that, I guess, because they're not so much housekeeping as announcements. Really just one anyway. But so thank you for joining me. I know some of you are joining in person. Some watch this at other times. Join us at other times, I should say. Participate in this small group at other times. And that's also fine. I'm blown away that you take time out of your busy days and busy lives to do it, and at all different kinds of times of the day and hours of the day. So, but good morning, and already see some folks checking in. That's awesome. So go ahead and do that. Check in. Let me know. Let me know you're there. Let me know who is watching, because otherwise, all I see is a number. I like seeing who it actually is. So good morning, John and Cindy. Good to have you with us this morning. And again, I'm sure there's others that'll be popping in. Cheryl, you might be out there, and for some reason, when you post things, I don't see it anymore until after I finish my video. So I'm sorry if I don't directly address your comments or your check-ins when you do them. Speaking of which, so folks who watched yesterday's episode, I was trying to remember the name of a man and a woman in a situation that David was that happened to David in episode 25, how a woman stopped David from shedding blood and bringing blood down on his family. I did look it up afterwards because I had to put it in my own head, and it was, the woman's name was Abigail and her husband was Nabal. And we're going to get to that one in a few chapters. So next week, maybe the week after, we will get to that episode in particular, and that event, that chapter, and we'll discuss it at that time. But that's the one I was thinking of. Excuse me. But so go ahead and check in, and I'm also able to watch on YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can say something there, and I think I should be able to see it. I hope I could see it when you do that. Of course, you can always send me a text as well, 570-351-1619. I usually check Facebook. I shouldn't say usually. I always check Facebook a couple times between one episode and the next to make sure that I'm caught up on all comments, questions, and stuff like that. And but I haven't been doing that with YouTube. I should go back and see if there were any comments, anything I need to take a look at there or address there. But as you check in, share what's on your hearts and your minds, what kind of things are lifting you up or weighing you down. This is a small group, and one of the points of small groups is to share life together. And so we keep each other surrounded in prayer and lifted in prayer. So that we connect in that fashion. Sorry, I get distracted because the video image seems to be really good. This computer's video camera is excellent. Anyway, announcements, yes, housekeeping, whatever. Tomorrow, as far as you're concerned, we'll be live at 9 o'clock, but I will be doing that video recording today. So when you look at episode 20, whether it's tomorrow or some other day, and you see me wearing the same shirt 2 days in a row, I'm not really wearing the same shirt 2 days in a row. It's just I did the 2 videos in one day. And that's how that works. All right. I don't know that I have any other announcements because I've talked about our worship series that's coming up. And I encourage you to check out the video for it that we created. It's there on Facebook. Just scroll down to a few and you'll see it. Our new worship series, our next series, however it's titled, and you can watch that video. Yeah, it was something I put together relatively quickly. It's not the best quality video, perhaps, but not the best editing job, I'm sure, but it serves the purpose, so to speak. But it's a series on the Exodus and the wilderness. So I think it's going to be a great series. I really do, and I invite you to join us for that. I'm still working on the set decoration for it, and we're getting there. It's gonna look good. John says the shirt demands being worn 2 days in a row. Oh, well, thank you. I love this shirt. It's a great one. Actually, Sue made this one for me. And it's one of those cases where she found the buttons first and said, I have to make a shirt using those buttons. And then she picked out the material to go with it. But yeah, yes, I like my Hawaiian shirts. Anyway, so let's get into it, right? We're going to read chapter 20 today. This is episode 19 on our journey through the book of 1 Samuel, and we're going to be looking at chapter 20 as we go through here. So where did we leave off? We've seen we've seen Saul's outright. First, we saw his hidden agenda against David and his subterfuge and saw that. And then we saw it moving into very overt actions on his part. And we saw his complete descent into madness, we might say, as being driven that way by his vengeances and not vengeances, probably, but his jealousy, his envy, his ego, and perhaps even his sense of failure, realizing that he hadn't been able to do the job that God had tasked him and anointed him to do, and sees that someone else is able to do that job in his stead. Where does it go from here? David ran away, he fled, got to Samuel and the prophets, and then we read the first part of chapter 20, the first half of a verse yesterday, because they got the ending of the chapter wrong. And that half of verse says, David fled from Naioth in Ramah. And so he fled from the sanctuary, we might almost say, the safety and security of where Samuel was, but he needed to still get away because Saul was there. So he fled from there. And where does he go? That's where we're going to pick up. So we're going to pick up with chapter 20, verse 1b. He came before Jonathan and said, what have I done? What is my guilt? And what is my sin against your father? Then he is trying to take my life. Pause. So he goes directly to Jonathan, this tremendously good friend, the son of Saul, and to plead with him, to find out, what did I do wrong? I'm an innocent man. Continuing, he said to him, Jonathan said to David, far from it, you shall not die. My father does nothing, either great or small, without disclosing it to me. And why should my father hide this from me? Never. But David also swore, your father knows well that you like me. And he thinks, do not let Jonathan know this, or he will be grieved. Ooh. Pause. A definite foreshadowing. That word is important. Continuing, but truly, as Yahweh lives and as you yourself live, there is but a step between me and death. Then Jonathan said to David, whatever you say, I will do for you. Pause. So Jonathan says, no way, it's not going to happen. Perhaps recalling, well, my father just vowed that he wasn't going to do that. I convinced him not to. Or Perhaps this story comes from a different tradition. Perhaps it's out of order, and this one should have been before that one, whatever. But he's confident that Saul would have told me. He would have told me. He wouldn't have done anything like this without telling me. He tells me everything. David said, no, he knows how you feel about me. How you feel about me. David now does not give further proof. He just makes this little vow. Truly as God is, as Yahweh and you lives and you live, there's but a step between me and death. So it's not any proof. He's not offering proof about Saul's intention, but he's showing his confidence in his knowledge and in his belief, which apparently is enough to convince and sway Jonathan. And without telling him what he wants, without David telling Jonathan what he would like him to do, Jonathan just says, whatever you want, I'll do it. Right. Showing an amazing amount of love for David. An amazing amount of love for David. Whatever you say, I will do for you. Virtually no matter what it is. Excuse me. David said to Jonathan, so David's got a plan. David said to Jonathan, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at the meal. But let me go so that I may hide in the field until the third evening. If your father misses me at all, then say, David earnestly asked leave of me to run to Bethlehem, his city, for there is a yearly sacrifice there for all the family. If he says, good, it will be well with your servant. But if he is angry, then know that evil has been determined by him. Therefore, deal kindly with your servant, for you have brought your servant into a sacred covenant with you. But if there is guilt in me, kill me yourself. Why should you bring me to your father? Jonathan said, far be it from you. If I knew that it was decided by my father that evil should come upon you, would I not tell you? Then David said to Jonathan, who will tell me if your father answers you harshly? Jonathan replied to David, come, let us go out into the field. So they both went out into the field. Pause. So David has a plan, pretty simple plan. It's a special day, a special event. I should be there with the king. And if I'm not there and he notices, if he's gentle, then it's all good. But if he gets angry, then you'll know the truth. It's a pretty simple plan, straightforward. And we'll find out what happens. But in here, excuse me. Excuse me. Almost hidden in here, neither the NIV nor the NRSV kind of catches quite the importance of it. Several times in this chapter, the Hebrew word hesed is used. And hesed is a complex word, and we're never 100% sure how to translate it. Usually hesed is used to describe something about God. And it's usually translated as loving kindness, steadfast love, or mercy. It's used in this chapter several times, but it's never translated that way. I don't know why. I don't know why they don't kind of keep that so that we can at least catch that relationship. Instead, it's translated as deal kindly in verse 8 in the NRSV, and the NIV says show kindness. And if they don't want to translate it the same way we translate it for when we're talking about God, as far as that loving kindness, steadfast love, or mercy, then another good way to describe it, perhaps better than what is here, to get a more full understanding of the depth of the word, would be to describe it as loyalty. Although even that word isn't enough, because it's not just loyalty, it's the act and the emotion of loyalty. So it's not just staying true, It's that staying true, staying connected, and acting in that fashion as well. So it's a I mean, it's a short word, as said, but it means a lot. It means a lot, and I'm going to try to remember to point it out each time it's used, but it's used here, and it's quite interesting because there in verse 8, it also uses the word covenant, which covenant, especially in the Old Testament, when we're talking about covenant, often refers to covenant loyalty, a covenant loyalty. And David is referring to this covenant loyalty that Jonathan and he have. We remember Jonathan spoke about this covenant, or it was talked about this covenant idea. We never found out a whole lot of details about the covenant. There's nothing's there, but David is saying we have this covenant relationship. Good morning, Annie. Oh, I'm sorry you have a health issue. Our prayers for you. Our prayers for you. All right. So Jonathan agrees. Sure. David said, "Hey, if you find if this comes out," and he said, "Why don't you just kill me yourself rather than taking me to your father?" But Jonathan said, "That's never going to happen, dude. You and I are one." We'll remember back to his other words. You're like kind of was described as their souls were bound to each other. Their lives were bound to each other. So Jonathan said, "There's no way I'm going to kill you." He said, "I just can't do that. I might as well just kill myself." So of course I'm going to tell you if there's a bad reaction from my father at your absence. And David says, "Well, how are you going to let me know? How are you going to let me know?" And they says, "Well, let's go out to the field." So they go for a walk out in the field. Now, this whole thing, all these details, this part and like towards the ending, especially the ending. In fact, I'll save it till there. So we're going to continue now. Verse 12. Jonathan said to David, "By Yahweh, the God of Israel, when I have sounded out my father about this time tomorrow or on the third day." Pause. Okay, he's going from tomorrow to the third day. Well, the day after would be the third day, the way they counted time. Today, we don't normally count today as a day. If we're counting out, 1 day is tomorrow, 2 days is the day after, 3 days is the day after that. But at this time, they didn't. They counted today as the first day, as day one. So tomorrow isn't 1 day. It's actually 2 days from now. And then the day after that is the third day. It's 3 days from now. All right. So we're only talking about 2 days. We're only talking about 2 days, like a 48-hour period. So let me go back to Jonathan said to David, "By Yahweh, the God of Israel, when I have sounded out my father about this time tomorrow or on the next day, if he is well disposed toward David, shall I not then send and disclose it to you? But if my father intends to do you harm, Yahweh, do so to Jonathan and more also, if I do not disclose it to you and send you away so that you may go in safety." Pause. That phrase in there, "may God do to me and more," it's used multiple times in scripture. A lot of times we're not 100% sure what it means, but it's some sort of a vow, basically asking God to bring down a curse upon me if I don't follow up on this. And sometimes it's thought to mean like be torn apart and all kind of horrible things, but do such and such to me and more. This is connected to that. Now, if I do not disclose it to you and send you away so that you may go in safety. Continuing, may Yahweh be with you as he has been with my father. Pause there. So Jonathan recognizes that God was with Saul, but I think that Jonathan realizes that God, Yahweh, is now with David, that Yahweh has left Saul and is no longer guiding him, no longer empowering him, no longer filling him with God, with his spirit, with the Spirit of God. But all of that has gone over to David. And Jonathan's cool with that. He says, "May Yahweh be with you as he was with my father. Notice it is a past tense. It doesn't say as he has been. Well, it does say as he has been with my father, but still, I read in that as a past tense. Maybe he's holding out hope that God is still with Saul, but he seems to be recognizing that that's no longer the case. Continuing, if I am still alive, show me the faithful love of Yahweh. They do call it faithful love there, but that's that hesed, this covenant loyalty of Yahweh. But if I die, never cut off your faithful love, your loyalty, from my house, even if Yahweh were to cut off every one of the enemies of David from the face of the earth. Thus Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, may Yahweh seek out the enemies of David. Jonathan made David swear again by his love for him, for he loved him as he loved his own life. Pause. Okay, so what's going on here? This seems to be an insertion by the author to give a background and to put context, to foreshadow a promise that David will keep in 2 Samuel, chapter 9-ish, where following the death, spoiler alert, Jonathan is going to die, as is Saul, actually together at the same time, or virtually the same time, and most of Saul's family is cut off, destroyed, killed. But David searches for one member of the family who has lived, and it's one member of Jonathan's family. Is there not anyone that's still let alive? And there is. There's a son. Jonathan's son is still alive. So David almost adopts him, brings him into his family, takes care of him, allows him to sit at the king's table, feeds him, gives him a place to live and stay, and all that kind of stuff, and says it's because of his vow to Jonathan. So this is what that will be talking about, right? Jonathan says, don't ever give up your faithful love to me, or if I'm dead, to my family. In other words, we're innocent of anything my father wants to do. So please don't hold it against me and my family, my descendants, for what he has done or is trying to do to you. And may God destroy all your enemies. Okay, he knows God's on David's side, and he's calling for that to happen. Now, interesting. So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David. May Yahweh seek out the enemies of David. Jonathan made David swear again by his love for him, for he loved him as he loved his own life. Pause. That's a rather complex sentence, especially in Hebrew. And it's not clear, like, who's the objects of it? Whose love are we speaking about? Is Jonathan asking David to swear by David's love for Jonathan, or is Jonathan asking David to swear by Jonathan's love for David? For he loved him as he loved his own life, for David loved Jonathan as David loved his own life, or for Jonathan loved David as Jonathan loved his own life. It can be read either of those ways. It can be read either of those ways. So he's either asking David to swear by David's love, or he's asking David to swear by Jonathan's love. But both of which fit. And the only thing I would remember is we've never been told really specifically how David responds to Jonathan's love. We're seeing some stuff here that would incline us to believe that the love is mutual. That David has this special regard, a special relationship, a deep, abiding love for Jonathan, but he has never actually said it so far. Okay, continuing. Jonathan said to him, tomorrow is the new moon. Pause. So now that verses 12 to 17, like I said, seems to have been an insertion by an editor or the author in particular to give that backdrop for that future event happening in 2 Samuel chapter 9, because verse 11 ends with David asking, 10, how will you tell me if your father, or who will tell me if your father answers you harshly? And Jonathan begins to give the answer, says, come on, let's go out into the field. Now we return to that. This is the conclusion of that. This is now how he's going to do it. 18, Jonathan said to him, tomorrow is the new moon. You will be missed because your place will be empty. On the day after tomorrow, you shall go a long way down. Go to the place where you hid yourself earlier and remain beside the stone there. I will shoot 3 arrows to the side of it, as though I shot at a mark. Then I will send the boy, saying, go find the arrows. If I say to the boy, look, the arrows are on this side of you, collect them. Then you are to come. For as Yahweh lives, it is safe for you and there is no danger. But if I say to the young man, look, the arrows are beyond you, then go, for Yahweh has sent you away. As for the matter about which you and I have spoken, Yahweh is witness between you and me forever. Pause. So again, it's a pretty simple thing. Jonathan say, I'm going to take a boy, a servant, but obviously a child. I'm going to pretend to miss my mark, that I'm shooting at something with my bow and arrow. And if I tell him, got to come back this way, you went too far, my arrows are there, then pick them up and come here, then it's okay. You can come in and all is fine. But if I tell my boy, oh, you got to go farther, they went farther, and go collect them, then that means you need to run. You need to flee. And he says, Yahweh has sent you away. Yahweh has sent you away, indicating his belief, his understanding that God is intervening through Jonathan and through this knowledge and through this slight deceit in order to save David's life. And as for the matter about which you and I have spoken, Yahweh is witness between you and me forever. Just another reminder about this little covenant that they've got going on in this special relationship. So David hid himself in the field. When the new moon came, the king sat at the feast to eat. The king sat upon his seat, as at other times, upon the seat by the wall. Jonathan stood, while Abner sat by Saul's side, but David's place was empty. Pause. It's interesting that Jonathan wasn't seated, but he's not. He's standing up, presumably against a wall. But Abner is there, and but David's place is obviously empty. Continuing, Saul did not say anything that day, for he thought, something has befallen him. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean. Pause. And this would be the ritual cleanliness. This new moon festival presumably was a religiously based thing, and the need to be ceremonially clean or pure for this event, for this dinner, and which could have happened from a bunch of different things. Contact with a dead body, not an unusual thing for a warrior, to have happen. A release of bodily fluids, so again, bleeding or whatever, would also cause uncleanliness from this ritualistic purity and cleanliness is what we would be speaking of. So he's given him the benefit of the doubt since he's not here the first day. But on the second day, the day after the new moon, David's place was empty. And Saul said to his son Jonathan, well, pause, why would he ask Jonathan? Because he knows their relationship, right? Continuing, why has the son of Jesse not come to the feast either yesterday or today? Pause. I find this humorous, and it's almost hidden where we miss it, right? We miss it. What does he call him? It's like it seems like Saul can't even utter the name David. And he's trying to call him something else, this son of Jesse, not to come to the feast, right? almost using that as an epithet, perhaps as a reminder to himself and to everyone around there of David's low standing and his low origin, that he was nothing. He's the son of Jesse. Where is he? All right, continuing. So I'll reread that. Why is the son of Jesse not come to the feast, either yesterday or today? Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem. He said, let me go, for our family is holding a sacrifice in the city, and my brother has commanded me to be there. So now, if I have found favor in your sight, let me get away and see my brothers. For this reason, he has not come to the king's table. Then Saul's anger was kindled against Jonathan. He said to him, you son of a perverse, rebellious woman. Do I not know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse lives upon the earth, neither you nor your kingdom shall be established. Now send and bring him to me, for he shall surely die. Then Jonathan answered his father Saul, why should he be put to death? What has he done? But Saul threw his spear at him to strike him. So Jonathan knew that it was the decision of his father to put David to death. Jonathan rose from the table in fierce anger and ate no food on the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David, and because his father had disgraced him. Pause. Ooh, there's that word grieve. Remember earlier, David said, oh, Saul's keeping this from you because he knows our relationship and he doesn't want to grieve you. Well, that's exactly what he ends up doing, grieving Jonathan, putting Jonathan into a state of grief because of this relationship. Now, I think Jonathan's grief is multi-sided, multi-causal, so to speak. There is the grief over this break in the relationship between Saul and David. There's the idea of grief that my own father wants to kill my best friend, or the love of my life, depending on how we read it. But I think there's also a grief over the complexity of all of the relationships taking place here. There are so many triangles going on, right? There's a triangle. Triangles are things that we speak about in family systems theory, which is a psychological and relational theory espoused by a guy named Bowen. Yeah, Bowen's family system theory, that all of our relationships are triangles, and one point of the triangle often feels a great amount of stress, especially when there's something going on between the other two parts of the triangle. So, there's a triangle between yourself, your spouse, and a child. That's a triangle, and we all live in multiple triangles. We have multiple triangles going on at one time, and a triangle likes to be in homeostasis, likes to be in one form. But when we try to adjust our behavior, it kind of throws things off, and people have to react to it. And if you're at the point of stress, God bless you, because it can often present itself in various forms of illness. Both psychological and physical illness. In here we see Jonathan's relationship to David. It's not just those two people. There's a third side to the triangle, and that third side is Saul. And Jonathan would seem to be at the point of greatest stress. Anxiety is actually usually the word that's used in this triangular relationship, because he has a relationship with his father, and he has a relationship with David. He has commitments to his father. He also has commitments to David. And now these commitments, these relationships, are in direct conflict with each other. So he is grieving over what is taking place in this triangle. And I would say how it is impacting him and how it's going to impact him, both physically, emotionally, psychologically, and all that stuff. I believe he's also grieved because his father has disgraced him as well, using epithets about his mother and about himself, saying nasty things. So nothing's off limits, apparently, for Saul. Nothing's off limits for Saul. Continuing. In the morning, Jonathan went out into the field to the appointment with David, and with him was a little boy. He said to the boy, "Run and find the arrows that I shoot." As the boy ran, he shot an arrow beyond him. When the boy came to the place where Jonathan's arrow had fallen, Jonathan called after the boy and said, "Is the arrow not beyond you?" Jonathan called after the boy, "Hurry, be quick, do not linger." So Jonathan's boy gathered up the arrows and came to his master. But the boy knew nothing. Only Jonathan and David knew the arrangement. Jonathan gave the weapons to the boy and said to him, "Go and carry them to the city." As soon as the boy had gone, David rose from beside the stone heap and prostrated himself with his face to the ground. He bowed 3 times, and they kissed each other and wept with each other. David wept the more. Then Jonathan said to David, "Go in peace. Since both of us have sworn in the name of Yahweh, saying, 'Yahweh shall be between me and you, and between my descendants and your descendants forever.'" He got up and left, and Jonathan went into the city. Pause, end of chapter. Okay, so Jonathan lives up to his end of the deal. He goes out the next day to warn David, and they use that little scheme, that device that they had planned out. Shoots the arrows, sends the little boy out to get them, and makes this quick announcement: "Is the arrow not beyond you?" Saying that he shot it not for the boy's hearing. Well, not just for the boy's hearing, but for David to hear. Then he says, "Hurry, be quick, do not linger." Is he speaking to the boy, or is he speaking to David? He's probably speaking to both. He's telling the boy to hurry, grab those things, and come back here. But it would seem that he is also telling David, "You can't linger. You got to run now. This is how pressing this issue is. This is how badly my father wants to kill you. This is where the situation is. Do not linger. Hurry." And the boy knew. But does David just run away? No, they meet together, face to face, one last time, as soon as the boy leaves the area. And he prostrates himself, a symbol perhaps of this covenant relationship they have, of this his head relationship and loyalty. He prostrates himself before him and bows 3 times, and they kiss and they cry, and David weeps more. And David weeps more. Although the meaning of that Hebrew is uncertain, what that means. David wept the more. And Jonathan sends him away. Go in peace. Go in peace. We're okay. But you need to get out of here. The whole thing. This is a longer chapter than a couple of the last couple we've been reading, and most of it is taken up in those 2 things. They're creating the plan of how to do it, and the resulting portion of the plan, the actual acting out of this plan, and not the whole plan, just the notification. It's like and the way it's written by the author seems to be in a very slow fashion, as if although Jonathan doesn't want David to linger, it's like the author wants us to linger. in this story, in this event, showing how they didn't want it to end. And the author doesn't want the story to come to a close, but it must come to a close. And so we see this great friendship, this great love, and we see, I hate to say it, falling apart or breaking, because they're still going to have this relationship, but from a distance only, because of everything that's happening. And the story must move on. And we will as well. So tomorrow we will be looking at chapter 21. Which isn't as long as today's. It's a couple stories actually put together, and not a whole lot, but it'll be plenty to talk about. That's for sure. So anyway, my friends, I thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me, for joining each other as well, for joining us, for all of us being together. Thank you for taking time out of your lives to be part of this. I do pray that this has been beneficial, that God has spoken to you in some way. Oh, good morning, Don. I'm just seeing that. I pray that God has spoken to you in something that I've done, or something we've read, something we've said, that you've learned something or relearned something. As you go about your days, keep those eyes and ears, physical and spiritual, open for everything that our living, loving, active God is doing in your life and in the lives of those around you. When you see it, when you hear it, say, thank you, God, and then tell somebody about it. Until we meet again, my friends, be blessed. Be blessed.